minus the chair. Yeah, if you could get a motion to do that, that would be great. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Sheriff Rotter.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with introductions. If we could maybe just start there with Carol and work our way around the room.
Kara Sorrells representing Iowa APCO.
Jack D'Angelo, Sully Telephone, representing small telcos.
Tracy Beard. Not working out. Speak loud. Tracy Beard representing Iowa NINA.
Gerard Myers, representing Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Rob Rotter, Iowa County Sheriff, representing Iowa State Sheriffs and Deputies Association.
Lawrence Harpins, representing Iowa Geographic Information Council.
Mike Bryant, representing the Iowa Professional Firefighters.
Joe Duckworth, representing Iowa Emergency Management.
Blake DeRucci, Iowa Homeland Security Emergency Management, 911 Program Manager.
Mark Murphy, Dubuque County, representing the Iowa Firefighters Association.
James Chambers, CenturyLink, representing Large Telecom.
Iowa NINA.
Gerard Myers, representing Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Rob Rotter, Iowa County Sheriff, representing Iowa State Sheriffs and Deputies Association.
Lawrence Harpins, representing Iowa Geographic Information Council.
Mike Bryant, representing the Iowa Professional Firefighters.
Blake DeRucci, Iowa Homeland Security Emergency Management, 911 Program Manager.
Mark Murphy, Dubuque County, representing the Iowa Firefighters Association.
James Chambers, CenturyLink, representing Large Telecom.
Okay, if we could go out to the crowd, I don't know, we have a microphone that we could bring out there. Obviously having an audio problem this morning. That must be the delay for the cussing that could happen, I suppose.
Representing the Iowa Professional Firefighters.
Blake DeRucci, Iowa Homeland Security Emergency Management, 911 Program Manager.
Mark Murphy, Dubuque County, representing the Iowa Firefighters.
On the day that I chair.
You could ask people to mute their phone. Watching it, and that's where we're getting the loop back.
So I'm being told if the folks on the phone would please mute their phone, that's causing the feedback. And with that, if we could start over there again. Could you take yours over there?
Terry Brennan with Raycom.
Scott French with Zetron.
Bob Connell with Zetron.
Brent Dippy with Zetron.
Wayne Foray, Zetron.
Dwayne Voss with Raycom.
Diana Richardson, Raycom.
Walt Sang with Zetron.
John Scott, Zetron.
Louis Melchert, Zetron.
Sheriff Keith Davis, Wayne County.
Alice Wisner with Legislative Services Agency.
Mike Casper, Lynn County.
Doug McCaslin, Warren County.
Martha Dykstra, Marion County.
Brent Long, Polk County. Curtis Pion, Polk County. Jim Lundstead, DHS, OEC.
Lori Hickok, Comtech.
Chris Myers on SWIC.
Andy Buffington, Hancock County, 911.
John Paoli, Iowa Homeland Security Emergency Management.
Tammy Rodriguez, ICN.
Lori Riley, Perry Police Department.
Diane Seifert, South Central Iowa.
Rodney Tucker, Iowa Utilities Board.
Wayne Johnson, CenturyLink, representing Large Telco as an alternate.
Daryl Connect, Howard County Emergency Management 911.
Jeff Anderson, Marion County Emergency Management 911.
Robert Bukinski, Pella Police Department.
Marcia Slycord, Pella Police Department.
Sandy Morris, Des Moines Police Department.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, we'll be presiding over a smooth meeting today. If I could entertain the motion to approve our agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And could I also get a motion to approve the last meeting's minutes on October 12th?
So moved.
You have a motion? Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Okay, Blake?
Good morning. Sean, can you go ahead and show the overhead projector, please? I passed out the quarterly financials a little bit ago. Apologies if there's not enough to go around. It's also being displayed on the screens. Pretty much the same format as we've used in the past. So just to point out a couple highlights. Received $7.2 million in total surcharge dollars, which translates to about 4.3 to the local PSAPs. A couple other highlights from the quarter. A lot of the text conversions were made in this quarter. So paid $400,000 on that, and then also GIS grants already being paid out to the tune of $59,000, which when you pay all the bills, pay all the PSAPs, it leaves about just a little bit under $1 million transferred into the operating surplus. Continuing on down, that means there was $14 million in the operating surplus as of last quarter, and about $15 million in the operating surplus this quarter. Also, you can see that at this point we've hardly touched the kind of the $7 million, which is the pot of funds for consolidation grants, and then council travel, and then 911 training and 911 public education. Reminder, whatever is not spent out of that gets distributed equally to the PSAPs at the end of the fiscal year. Give you a second to look over it. Certainly entertain any questions on it. Also passed out the quarterly payments to the PSAPs, so you can see which PSAPs received what dollar amount. Same thing that I've said for the last 3 quarters now. The amount displayed for Mills County is the full amount. We still have not received their expenditure collection form, so we withheld 35% of their surcharge. It's now at about $30,000 that we're retaining until we see that PSAP expenditure form. They have till March to get that to us. Otherwise, it stays in the operating surplus. Next topic, I know we talked last month that we had held the governor's press conference on text to 911. A couple additional PSAPs were rolled out pretty much immediately following that. So there are 5 PSAPs that still remain, and 4 of those are really the same technological hurdle that we're trying to overcome. So hopefully those get resolved as well relatively quickly. Again, all of those materials on text 911 are on our website. We also did some really quick, I wouldn't even call them podcasts, they're just kind of audio snippets kind of talking about text to 911. Those are also available on our website if you are interested. Any questions before I move on from those couple topics? Okay. Did you want to do that?
I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I had everybody mute. If we could, the folks on the phone, if you could unmute for just a bit and identify yourselves.
Brenda Vandervoort, Fayette County 911.
Marilyn Stainer, Worth County 911.
AJ Seeley, Chickasaw County 911. Caitlin Jordan, Iowa Communications Alliance.
Mary Miller, Iowa County 911.
Okay, thank you.
A few more things before I turn it over to kind of our special presentation. The offer that John Benson made last month in my absence still remains. If there's any agencies from the council that want kind of a special presentation on our draft legislation, by all means, we would be available to talk, to answer questions, whatever you guys might need. So that offer remains. Last month, we had the presentation on the network merging portion of kind of our consolidation plan, our virtual consolidation plan. So that presentation remains available on the council's YouTube site. We'll make sure, I know it's on our website. If it's not on the agenda or on the minutes, it'll be captured there. But if you need the link, just let us know. We'll get that to you. Kind of the same thing with this, the upcoming presentation. If you're not able to, if somebody's not able to attend and wants to watch the presentation, it'll be archived probably later today up on our YouTube site forever and ever. So this is the kind of the component that we've gotten the most questions about. So Zetron's here to give a presentation on the shared services component. So they're going to take a little bit more time, I think, than ICN did, just because it's just a more confusing topic. The wireline conversion and merging is fairly straightforward. I think a lot of people can get their heads around that. But this is the kind of the aspect of the virtual consolidation that we've had more questions about. So just to reiterate, before I turn it over to them, if you've missed other presentations or you're just tuning in for the first time, our draft legislation does not make any changes to the wireline surcharge. That's still $1 coming directly to the local service boards. It makes no changes to the wireless surcharge pass-through. That's still 60% to local PSAPs, 40% to manage the network. We're just going to leverage that 40% better and use it. So the other thing that we're making sure to put out there is we're not making you switch vendors. If you're happy with your CPE vendor, if it's a relatively new controller, by all means, keep it. There's no reason to change. But if you're unhappy with your vendor, if your system's at end of life, it's probably a good time to talk to us and see if we can work something out. Again, we would be paying those costs. The other thing, and I think Zetron will talk about it a little bit, part of our RFP for the shared services include other systems, other components, such as EMD, logging recorder, mapping, and CAD. We haven't exactly figured out the dollars and cents of that yet. It could be the case where we have to work out some sort of cost share with the local PSAP, but the CPE component would be absorbed by HSEMD. So just wanted to throw that out there kind of in advance of their presentation. Any questions on any of that? Okay, and with that, go ahead.
Okay, good morning. And again, thank you for allowing Zetron the time to come present to you. My name is Brent Dippy, and I'm the CEO of Zetron. And on behalf of the Zetron team, I just want to say thank you for having us here this morning, and thank you for trusting us in awarding this contract and allowing us to roll out the solution for your state. I'm just going to take a moment to give a little background on Zetron. And then I'm going to turn it over to Bob Connell, who's going to walk you through the different elements of the solution that is being rolled out and answer any questions that may come from that. Zetron has been in the business of providing mission-critical communication solutions for public safety and other markets since 1980. And we have more than 30,000 console positions deployed across the globe. So we've been doing this for a long time. We understand the importance of this, and we understand how important it is that the solutions we provide to you are reliable and redundant and fail-proof. I think more importantly than what we have done worldwide and across the globe for a long time is we've been, in partnership with Raycom, been rolling out solutions into the public safety space in Iowa for more than 20 years now. And we have a relationship with many of the counties in the state. We have a very large contingent here today. We're in some kickoff and meetings with the state and trying to make sure that we are understanding exactly what the state wants. And we're going to be flexible in how we design this and roll this out to accommodate what is going to work best for the state. I want to introduce the team members that are going to be key and critical to the project. I've got Wayne Frey, who's the Vice President of Sales for the Americas. Scott French, the General Manager of the Americas. Terry Brennan with Raycom. And Paul Singh, who's the Regional Manager for Zetron in this area. And then the faces that you'll see most frequently on the project, we've got John Scott, our Project Manager, right up here. And Louise Melchert, who's our Sales Engineer. And then the gentleman who is going to walk you through the presentation and be available to answer the questions about our solution, Bob Connell.
Thanks, Brent. Okay, what we're going to cover today are our project, the project goals and the solutions that Zetron has presented to the state, the support organization that we're using here. I'm going to be talking a little bit about each of the elements of the shared services solution and the features and benefits associated with those features or those solutions. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the project timeline. Still a little bit nebulous there, but we'll cover that as well. And then hopefully we'll have a few questions from the audience here that we can answer for you while we're here. So the goal of the state, because of the Senate File 500 that modified the Code of Iowa, Chapter 34A, it charged the Homeland Security Department with identifying potential cost savings through two possible methods: merging the legacy wireline 911 with the next generation wireless, and also sharing of public safety answer point services. So how can these shared service goals be met? Well, one is the centralization of electronics and applications. I think that you referred to that as the virtual consolidation. Lower cost and improved application performance via competitive bid process. And then cost savings through collaboration and sharing resources. Okay, so we're seeing the ability, not just here in Iowa, but across the country, where more and more 911 centers are sharing data across networks. Our goal was to provide Iowa PSAPs with the ability to implement a logical family of public safety shared services. Those include next generation 911 call taking, common GIS map display, computer-aided dispatch, mobile data as part of the dispatch CAD solution, eventide logging recording, and finally, PowerPhone emergency medical dispatch. The key to our success, though, is really the boots on the ground that we have here. And we have the best support in the business with Raycom Corporation of Marshalltown, Iowa. They're our #1 reseller across the country, and they have been for years. They have support centers throughout the state, I think 9 or 10 or so support centers logically found across the state. They've got highly trained Zetron certified technicians, experienced project management, and the host location for our equipment is going to be, one of the host locations is going to be at their Marshalltown site, which has a hardened facility there that's their network operations center, 7x24 operations. So we're very happy to have that. And then finally, local accountability to Iowa. They are an Iowa company and have been in business for a number of years. Our solution is to provide a dual redundant, geographically diverse, and proven next generation 911 call taking system that can use the state provided emergency services IP network to better serve all the PSAPs in the state. The call taking system we're proposing, called Max Call Taking, is going to provide geodiverse, redundant host services on diverse carrier systems. So we're not going to use just the ICN into our host sites. We're also using an alternate carrier for carrying some of that traffic. We are a company that believes in the standards. We have several people that are on NENA committees in our organization. They are in the NENA committees that are setting up requirements for products. They're setting up standards. And so consequently, we are ahead of the game, at least in the knowledge of what may be coming down the road as far as the NENA standards are concerned, so that our engineers have a heads up and we can design products that are prepared for what the future may bring. The solution we're going to provide is customizable on a per PSAP basis within manufacturer specifications. In other words, we can't do everything independently, but for the most part, the PSAPs will have a different looking system potentially than their neighbor may, but it's still the same base and host system. We have discounted statewide pricing for both urban and rural areas. It's statewide. And so consequently, we're able to provide services to those counties that may not have had that benefit of these services in the past, the types of services we're going to offer. Our call taking system supports next generation 911, as many of you already know today. We also support legacy 911 services, and then we support administrative lines. So consequently, if you sign up to be a remote system off of our host systems, and you have telephone lines, 7-digit phone lines that you would like answered on your console, we can manage that for you. And it's something that we'll take on a case-by-case basis. Of course, the benefits of this max call taking system to you, it provides you with a higher degree of natural disaster protection, right? We're going to have separated geodiverse host systems. So if some catastrophe strikes one, the other host will immediately take over, and you will continue to have your operations continuity. That ensures the continuity of public safety services. And I mentioned before, it's a configuration by PSAP. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and that's what many PSAPs object to when they look at a hosted solution, because everything is generically the same. This is a screenshot of our call taking or our call handling screen. It gives you a brief idea of what our software looks like, but the thing I wanted to point out is when you talk about next generation 911, this is what it should look like, right? It shouldn't be the same old squared boxes on the screen. We need to move into the next generation, and our system provides that kind of capability to do that. This is not meant to be a demonstration by any means. Those will be coming down the road, but just wanted to give you a preview of what the screenshot or a screen would look like at your 911 center. So hosted models versus standalone models. What's the benefit for you guys? Well, for a hosted model, you've got the expanded redundancy and diversity. Now we're talking about multiple telephone companies or multiple network service providers providing us access to the network. We've got hosts in dual sites, and they are redundant in and among themselves. So it's a double redundancy. The equipment is going to be housed in hardened facilities, okay? Gives you a level of disaster protection. There's a commonality of the end user equipment. So in the event you and your neighboring PSAP have our remotes off of our host system, and one of you has to evacuate your 911 center, there's nothing stopping you from going over to your neighbor's location, putting up a laptop or using one of their positions and actually logging in as if you were back at your home location. So we do provide that commonality of end user equipment so that you know what the equipment's going to do, you know what it's going to look like. You have the ability also to layer on applications. An example of that is right now we are working with a company called Rapid SOS to provide more accurate data for location data for a cellular call, a little bit superior to the location that you get from the traditional cellular provider. So that's something that once we set that up, we will be able to push out to all the locations. And when you're looking at that, we are able then, before we even push anything out to you folks, we are able to use the lab that we have at our Hardin facility to evaluate upgrades and enhancements and bug fixes and those types of things in a real world environment before we actually are then able to push those solutions down to your locations. So very simplified. We may not even need somebody out at your location disrupting your business while we're upgrading your system. And then we also are proactive in our resolution. We have the Network Operations Center and the Maintenance Center there at Marshalltown that will know when issues are occurring before they actually affect the system. That's opposed to a standalone model where you can get diversity and redundancy, but it's at a cost, okay? You have to negotiate with your vendor for enhancements and upgrades. There's a disruption from installations and testing during any upgrade process. And you have to be reactive rather than proactive in your response to issues. The next products we're going to talk about are CAD, mobile, and map display. And this photograph shows you an example of what the screens potentially could look like on the CAD system. For the CAD, it's a high-performance CAD system, fully featured, but it's an easy-to-use CAD system. We have both a centralized server solution as well as a local server configuration. What happens there is that the sites will have, that sign up for the CAD system, will have transaction servers at each of the locations where all the activity is occurring, so we're not using the network to reach the cloud to provide that constant transaction. However, the transaction server and our host servers are mirrored so that in the event something happens to your transaction server at your site, you're able to access then over the network the host server, okay? We have a very strong support plan for the CAD system. That's one of the things we're very proud of, to keep you all at the same rev levels and to provide you enhancements and upgrades automatically as we move forward in the solution. And then, of course, it's statewide discounted pricing, so that's certainly the benefit that's passed on to the agencies, as well as whatever support the state may give you in this purchase. The benefits to you are the facilitation of information sharing. Again, critical issue to be able to start sharing information between each other, especially as we move into next generation 911, when the data you might receive is going to be critical to a response solution, and you're going to be able to share that with vehicles in the field as well as neighboring PSAPs potentially. So this also enables us to provide advanced services to traditionally underserved communities. Those small communities with small headcount populations maybe can't afford to do some of the things that you will be able to afford to do. Mobile is part of the CAD solution. It's an option that we included in our response, and it allows you to have software that you can put in computers in the vehicles themselves. Customizable screen layouts, audible alerts to NCIC queries, and you get a hit, it's going to be an audible alert for that, or a visual alert. There's an active resource monitor that can display all the resource activity at a glance, so the officer in the field knows where other resources are in relation to him. Self-dispatch capability allows you to reduce radio traffic between the vehicle and you by allowing them to make themselves on scene or make themselves transporting a prisoner or whatever it might be automatically with the touch of a keystroke. And it's a very easy to use map interface. What the benefits are there are increased situational awareness, okay? The officer in the field has the same kind of information that the dispatcher may have. It's the same map that's used in dispatch. So you have the opportunity now, if you're talking about directions on a map or something like that from a dispatch perspective, now the officer in the field has the very same map that you're looking at on their screen, and they can manage their own routes. NCIC queries and the returns from those queries are now visible to both dispatch and the vehicle in the field. So again, it reduces communication over the radio. And then finally, secure chat is available, so you can actually silently dispatch the officer in the field, or at least communicate with the officer in the field via that secure chat. Map display provides a hands-free live mapping of calls and CAD incidents, customizable base maps and features. And I see from the budget that the state has putting together a statewide GIS program, so that's going to be very beneficial to all the agencies in the state, and certainly it'll be appropriate for our map display. AVL, automatic vehicle location, is available as well. There's a module in the system, so if you want to track the locations of your vehicles on that same map where you're answering 911 calls, that is available to you. One-click access to important premise documents, and finally, interfaces to IP-based cameras. We have situations where some of our customers with our system have cameras throughout, located in schools and things like that, and they're able to simply click on the map and click on that particular camera to draw up the image and see what's happening. Nextlog logging recorder. Most of you have Nextlog or Eventide logging recorders in your centers. Those are localized and they probably do your radio and your telephone, so you're able to do that. We are going to have Nextlog recorders as a backup to you in the host locations that can be used for a couple purposes. First of all, if you lose your local logging recorder, we're going to be able to provide you 911 call logging and text message logging from our host system, so you have access to that, okay? We also have the ability now, or would have the ability to determine if there is an issue with the receipt of a call that you receive. We're able to detect whether the audio was good at point A and deteriorated at point B, or where exactly the problem may reside. So it gives us a diagnostic tool as well. This is going to be for 911 calls only. We are not going to try to backhaul or transport your radio traffic to these host systems. So people will probably still depend on their local machines, but this provides you with a very cost-effective backup. There are active and redundant recorders in the protected centers. It's Linux-based solution, so it's a very dependable and robust operating system. Continuous product innovation. Those of you that have Eventide logging recorders know how you've benefited from them over the years. Zetron has actually created a very tight interface with Eventide so that we can provide them metadata associated with the phone call. So not only are they picking up the audio, they're getting the alley information and they're getting extra data that you're able to search on. So you have a chance to do enhanced searches based on more than just the phone number that came in. The product is a US-based product, and local support is through Waltech. Most of you are very familiar with Waltech and know the kind of high-quality support that they provide. The benefits: you have an immediate backup in case of a localized failure at the PSAP. You have the ability to monitor the audio and metadata quality being sent from the host system to your local locations, and then automated reporting down to the channel and agency level. So you are going to be able, we'll have a consolidated location where we can pick up and create consolidated reports. And finally, PowerPhone Emergency Medical Dispatch. It's a proven, easy-to-use protocol. I know a lot of you use a different model or a different manufacturer of emergency medical dispatch. This one is incident-based protocols that support emergency medical dispatch and PAI, which is, what is the PAI? Pre-arrival instructions, that's right, for any type of emergency call. Real-time supervisory module allows for instant messaging during an event. Local alerts, SOPs, and derivative protocols for any type of emergency or special event. And probably one of the keys is that you can connect this to any CAD vendor. So they have an API that's available to the CAD companies, so the CAD company, and they've already connected to many of the CAD companies that are out there. So if you have another CAD system that you want to look at purchasing this emergency medical dispatch program, you're able to probably use that very CAD system. And then the protocols are mapped to each agency's CAD code, so it's nothing that you have to create. The benefits are improved agency's quality of service, supporting specific PSAP needs. It's up to you how you want to design this thing. Cost-effective and convenient interactive online certification training avoids employee travel. I know in many cases you have to release your employee for 3 or 4 days to go get certified, and now we have an interactive program that's going to allow you to keep them at home and let them do that on an interactive online basis. Increased confidence in the staff and responders by leveraging your expertise, reduced risk of liability that comes with these emergency medical dispatch programs, and offer a level of redundancy in the software that eliminates the need for paper backup. Okay, and I know a lot of you deal with paper backup in this kind of a situation. So those are the products that we brought to the table. We have a couple other optional products that are included as well, but from a major applications perspective, those are the ones that we have provided to you and have on the state contract. The contract is going to commence sometime. We're not exactly sure, and Blake can speak to that. There's legislative issues that have to be taken care of first, but so that's going to be determined when this contract will actually start. One thing we will do before the contract even gets started is we're going to start some regularly scheduled product webinars so that you'll be able to have a schedule, look at it, and determine if you want to turn on a web webinar at some point and listen to a CAD presentation about our CAD system, or a PowerPhone presentation about our emergency medical dispatch or our call taking or whatever. So that'll probably be the first step as we're continuing to work with Homeland Security, Emergency Management Division on putting this package together. You're going to be able to start determining whether these are something that you want to investigate and you want to show an interest in, that you can contact Blake and we can work through all the issues at that point. All right. Blake, you have any comments you want to make?
Just a couple things to add on, especially on this slide here. So everything that was said is absolutely spot on. We're basically trying to get to the point where we have a final draft version of the contract, wait for legislation to pass, hopefully, and then sign it soon thereafter. So, you know, if worst case scenario, the bill would get passed late in the session and not go into effect until the fiscal year, you know, that's July 1st. We're hoping that it moves quicker than that, and we're hoping that it's effective on signature, moving this whole process up a whole lot quicker than that. Again, just to reiterate, you know, you opt in to the CPE component of it, and then those other options become available to you. The CPE aspect of it, we're confident we can absorb those costs. It's the other components that it's just going to kind of depend on how many people have opted in at that point, and it'll most likely be some sort of cost share. As we've met with some of the various legislative staffers, they've expressed interest on almost making sure that cost share is there, making sure PSAP still, you know, are responsible for some component of this, that we're not taking on all of those costs. So that's been some of the discussion so far, and hopefully kind of clarifies, you know, the process. You want the CPE, you get the CPE, and then we'll talk about the rest.
Okay, thank you. You know, I mentioned the webinars. If anybody is in a situation where they have equipment that's failing them or anything like that, we can certainly, Zetron would be happy to come out and talk to you about it, or Raycom, as our feet on the street here, would be happy to come out and do a presentation for you, do a product demonstration for you. They're very familiar with our products, so it would be very easy for them to do that. And at least that way we could maybe potentially get you queued up to move forward as soon as the authority to move forward is passed on to Blake and the team. You'd be able to get off the ground running, I guess you could say. So with that, we're open for any questions that people may have about the products themselves or the program that Blake's created here. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mike Bryant, representing the out professional firefighters. I noticed on one of the slides the ability for automatic vehicle tracking. Is there any part being able to track individuals through portable devices?
I guess that would probably be through the radio. You're talking about a radio handset type
Right.
of thing? And I would expect that there's, how does AVL on the radio? I guess it depends on what kind of radio console they have, perhaps?
Yeah, I think ultimately, if the radio system can deliver you the lat long information, then you can display it. I think that's probably the easiest way of answering.
Yeah, I know that the map has a module that supports AVL, and there's probably a standard stream of data that's associated with that. So I would suspect that, yes, that's true, but we can find that out for you.
Option that could be included or added or something if all the pieces of the puzzle were correct?
Yeah. Now, you're going to have to provide the automatic vehicle location devices, if you will, that are then going to provide us with the data stream we need to display it on our map screen. We also have the ability now, or we will when this product, when we roll out, to be able to answer 911 calls from the map. So if you have a situation where you have a tanker truck fire on the highway and you've got a whole cluster of calls on your map screen around that, where people are telling you there's a truck on fire, and something is happening up here, you can simply click on that icon on the map now and answer that call from there. So it's going to give you a better visibility and, again, increase your situational awareness. Yes, sir.
I guess this kind of gets into the weeds here as far as the automatic vehicle locations. Do you guys know how that works as far as, I know when you say you can take the feed from a radio, I just know that usually what happens is usually the feed goes through the local computer, which goes through a VPN to a server at the station. I just was wondering if you guys knew exactly all the details on that, or...
I don't have any of the details on exactly how that works. I know it's all kind of magic to me as a salesperson, but we can certainly find all that out for you. We have specialists that can manage those things for you. Any other questions? Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Blake, going back to an earlier subject with respect to Mills County, are they, do you know what the hitch is there? Do they need some assistance? Is there anything we can do to reach out to them?
As part of our normal process, we send them, a letter every quarter of what we're doing, what they need to provide us. We had that discussion even before we had to start withholding the funds. Face-to-face meetings, I hand them the same letter and look them in the eye and say, I'm waiting for it. But I'm not exactly sure what the holdup is.
I think as ISSDA rep, I might just give the sheriff a call once and to see if there's something we can do.
And if you remember, there's an audit component to that report as well. And I know the state auditor's office was working some angles too, but by all means, any help would benefit them.
Okay. Thank you, Blake. Okay, moving on to GIS grant applications. Are there any that need to be removed individually by any board member? Where, Blake, can you, just for the record, list the PSAPs? Okay.
Montgomery, we have
Thank you.
Marshall. There's the three I have.
Very well. That sound like the complete list to you? Okay. I would entertain a motion then to approve those as a group. We have a move. Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to technical advisory. Is there any technical advisories that anyone is aware of at the board level here that we could share? Okay, anybody out here on the phone or in the audience that has anything they'd like to share? Okay. From there, we'll move on to Chris Mayers with his report.
Morning, and thank you, everyone. I will try to keep this as expeditious as possible since we're kind of running long already today. I just returned last night from a joint NICSWIC and SAFECOM meeting in Norman, Oklahoma. There were some very solid presentations on emergency response for Hurricane Harvey that I think will be very beneficial to us, especially as the new system expands out here in Iowa with Zetron. I think that opens up a lot of doors and avenues for fortifying our responses collectively. And once those after-action reports are available, I'll make sure that they get into your hands so that you can start reading through them and figure out what direction we want to go with that information. I do want to announce, Blake has been helping me out with this as well, that the annual SAFECOM survey is out. The deadline to fill that out is in February. I believe I've sent that out to the Sheriff's Association and emergency managers, but I would encourage everybody to fill it out so that SAFECOM can get a solid idea of what the emergency communications landscape looks like in Iowa. I was at TIA and TR8 in San Diego last month, and I'll call that a success. Had a chance to input some feedback from Iowa in standards development and kind of where things are headed. And also I was able to secure some members of TR8.3, which is the encryption subcommittee, to attend our next encryption meeting as we figure out how that's going to work in Iowa. They'll be able to give us an idea on where the standards are currently, where they're going, and then also the likelihood of those standards being incorporated into products. So hopefully we can leverage that to some extent to make those products reflect our needs in Iowa going forward. I think we have a very nice opportunity there. Outreach to local counties and stakeholders is ongoing and never ending. Been able to gather a lot of information, and I've had a chance to go to a few local county emergency communications meetings as well. Speaking of that, on Monday I'll be in Humboldt County, so I've got some drive time ahead of me. Back to encryption, we had our third meeting regarding that, using interoperable talk groups that are encrypted in Iowa. Again, that would just be an option. Think of it as another tool in the toolbox, but we're working our way through some of the technical aspects of that, and I think solutions are starting to present themselves, and that's a step in the right direction. The regional interoperability committee projects are underway now. RICS 3, 4, 5, and 6 have met regarding interstate interoperability. These were primarily information gathering meetings, figure out what the communications landscape looks like at this point, how it's going to evolve over the next 2 to 4 years, and then how we can incorporate those changes into perhaps suggested or best practices for communicating with our neighbors. I know I had a chance to speak with some SWICs from neighboring states this past week, and they're all very interested in what we're doing here in Iowa, and they want to make sure that as the communications landscape changes, not only here but in their home states, that there's an open dialogue so everybody knows how to interoperate with each other. RIC 2 has their meeting in the next week or so, and RIC 1 is going to be dealing with prisoner transport scenarios. Sheriff Rotter and Lieutenant Casper will be on that call hopefully as well, time allowing. I would encourage any sheriff to call in. We're going to have a go-to meeting set up so you can see what notes are being taken, if any presentations are given, in a conference line as well. I know that type of meeting will directly affect the sheriff's offices, so I want to make sure that they're as included as they can possibly be. Hopefully, as you've gotten a chance to work with me over the past 6 months, you've seen that I love to engage stakeholder feedback. And again, any idea that you have that crosses your mind that might play into interoperability, please let me know. I'm open to any and all feedback. One last item for today, Training Chair Denise Pavlik and Vice Chair Captain Walzer have been very active in seeking out training opportunities. We have a tactical dispatcher course going on next week at DPS, and we're looking at a Train the Trainer class as well. They're handling a lot of the planning aspects for those activities, and I do appreciate their time and efforts. But one thing I want to relay to the board here is that I do plan on using all of our TA courses provided by OEC in a given year. I don't know if that's necessarily been the case in the past, but I figure we may as well leverage those resources while they're available. So with that being said, I'll conclude my report. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Jim Lundstedt.
Good morning. I'll keep this very short. Chris covered much of what OEC is doing right now. The Train the Trainer course is actually an audio gateway refresher class. It'll be conducted over 3 venues in the state mid-January. So we're looking to reinforce capabilities that already exist. As we know, employees have transitioned in or transitioned out that support that technology. It's an important part of the interoperability response capability, and you have a lot of equipment. It's important to keep refreshed on it. Gateways have the opportunity to inhibit communications as well as support them. So our goal is to deliver training in 3 different venues and refresh as many people who have those devices to keep them current. The only other thing I wanted to bring up, and Chris will have details on this in the next month or so, one of the questions I get asked a lot about is, what is this thing with GETS and WPS? Does it really work? We've done a pretty deep dive with the response to Hurricane Harvey, Maria, and Irma, and I won't bore you with the slides and show you all the details. The short summary is, where you have dial tone, GETS was able to complete a call in those time periods at the 98.6% level, and WPS, wireless priority, was effective in over 94% of calls attempted. The pricing for WPS is changing. It is a competitive market. Not all carriers charge any longer for access to WPS or even charge a per minute fee. And as we talk about technical support for your 911 centers, your emergency communication centers, if your support people don't have access to a call methodology, GETS is not an expensive option. It's free. You only have to manage who holds the cards. And one little nugget that people probably don't recognize, GETS actually invokes WPS to a terminating cell phone. So if you operate a PSAP or an EOC and you originate a call using GETS, it will prioritize landing the call to the cellular phone, even if that instrument doesn't have WPS on it. You have to have WPS to get escalation priority to get a channel, to originate a call, but the same thing happens if you dial from your cell phone with a GETS card. So long story short, the capabilities worked. We have some pretty solid numbers coming out of Florida, Louisiana, Texas, and we're awaiting feedback from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands because we have some international carriers down there. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Good, thank you, Jim. Okay, any items for discussion from the board? Yes.
I welcome hackers as long as they take my debt, as well as my money, and maybe it'll spice up my life as well. But I know last time we talked about the email that some of us got about our bill. I got another one that said on Tuesday, they couldn't reach me by phone. I don't know if anybody else got that particular one.
I did.
Yeah, so I guess it's just, they're out there, whoever it is. And the other thing is, Blake, for you, I don't know where it's held. I'm pretty confident it's December 2nd, the Joint Public Safety Coalition meeting. Are you familiar where that's going to be this year? And I don't know who's hosting it, but basically it's sheriff's deputies, fire, police, POR. Anyway, I don't know if it's necessary it really isn't for me to help sell your 34A language changes, but I'll try to figure out from my organization where it's at. It's usually someplace in the metro on Saturday, usually the first Saturday, December 2nd. And it might be just a 5-minute deal.
Okay.
So that everybody's on the same page. It sounds like a joint resolution that wouldn't be debated that much, but get everybody kind of aware of what's going on.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. Anything else? Okay, any unfinished business from the board? Okay, having none. Travel requests? None? Okay. Any business issues, 911 related or otherwise from the floor?
This is Brenda Banford, Fayette County. I have a question for Blake about the shared services.
Go ahead.
Did you say that in order to have access to any of the other shared services, you have to first opt into using the CPE equipment?
Correct. That's been our philosophy thus far.
Any thoughts of changing that?
We could certainly have a conversation on why or what aspects of it you'd want, but it's the first time it's come up, so we can certainly have that conversation, but no promises.
Okay. Terry.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm Terry Brennan with Raycom. Bob did a really nice job, I think, going over some of the detail of the products that are part of the shared services opportunity. I want to make sure, like taking a step back at 30,000 feet and make sure everyone understands that this is meant to be an all-inclusive type opportunity. So Blake had mentioned that the state would be paying for the CPE for those that want it, but also I think that's not just for the initial cost. That is also for all the, it's basically all-inclusive to cover everything from support, helping you figure out what you need, to getting it installed, getting training on it, having us there for cutover, and then taking care of all of the hardware and software maintenance costs from that point on. So I just want to make sure that people understand that, it's not just for the equipment, which I think a lot of grants and grant monies have been in the past, but this is actually really taking the cost of the CPE off the plate of the PSAP moving forward. And so Blake, please comment if I'm misreading any of that.
Thank you. Any other issues from the floor or on the phone? Okay, hearing none. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, then we're adjourned. Thank you.